It's the 8th of September 2025. This is a brand new edition of Newsfirst Primetime News, coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. Bringing you the news tonight for the Newsfirst team, I am Jaimal Ratnayaka.
And I am Hashni Patirana. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Over 100 kilograms of chemicals suspected for ice production found in Kandana. Samples collected from Middenia contained ice, says Chief of Dangerous Drugs Control Board. Protest in Middenia against drug trafficking. Harakkata held under another detention order. New laws to tackle terrorism after repeal of PTA. Amendments to Online Safety Act. Foreign Minister Vijitha informs Human Rights Council. 2025 Asia Cup begins tomorrow. All matches live on TV1. On to your top story tonight. Over 100 kilograms of substances suspected to be used in the production of crystal methamphetamine, commonly known as ice, were discovered in a house and an adjacent paddy field in Kandana. Meanwhile, the National Dangerous Drugs Control Board says that the material found buried in Middenia contained chemicals used in the manufacture of crystal methamphetamine.
Police and Special Task Force officers searched a house on Ganemula Road in Kandana following information obtained from two close associates of Panadurani Lanka, an organised crime figure recently arrested in Indonesia and brought back to Sri Lanka. Investigations revealed that the house had been rented about a month ago by a man identified as Krishna, a resident of Matakkuliya, under a one-year lease agreement.
ඒගොල්ලෝ තමාරයව තිබ්බේ. ඉසීදාලා රැයිලි වෙනකන් ලයිව්. ගේ ගන්න 5 දෙනෙක් ආවා. මොකද පාතාල කට්ටිය දිහා සැකයක් තියුනේ අර මං එක්ක කතා කරානේ මෙහෙම විස්තර මම මගේ ගේ තිල්ලුවා. ලොකු මැෂින් එකක් වැඩ කරනවා. රෑ දිගටම වැඩ කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ කොම්ප්‍රෙසර් එක වගේ මං හිතුවේ මොකක් හරි මේකේ අලුත් වැඩියාවක් කරනවා කියලා. දකුණු පළාත් DIG සම්බන්ධයෙන් කෝල් එකක් ආවේ නැද්ද කියලා ඇහුවා. අවවාහනේ කට්ටිය. ඒ කට්ටිය අතර කතාවක් වුණා.
Newsfirst correspondent reports that the suspicious substances were placed around the garden of the house and in an adjacent paddy field. Later, officials from the Government Analysts Department arrived at the location and collected samples for testing. Police stated that the materials found in Kandana appear to share similar characteristics with those discovered earlier in Middenia. Are these substances chemicals used in the production of crystal methamphetamine? Samples from Middenia are currently being analysed by both the Government Analyst and the National Dangerous Drugs Control Board. The National Dangerous Drugs Control Board confirmed that some of the samples tested so far contained traces of methamphetamine.
අපේ නිලධාරීන් ගිහින් සාම්පල් 20ක් පමණ ගත්තා. ඒ අරගෙන දැන් මේ අවස්ථාව වෙනකොට පරීක්ෂණ කරනවා. දැන් වශයෙන් මට එක දෙයක් කියන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකේ තිබු සමහර සාම්පල් වල ප්‍රිකර්සර් කෙමිකල් ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් රසායන ගැන නෙමෙයි methamphetamine ඒ කියන්නේ අයිස්ම තියෙන අවස්ථාවක් දකින්න ලැබෙන සමහර කොටස් වල. අපි මේක සම්පූර්ණ පරීක්ෂණය තාම ඉවර නැහැ. අපි සාම්පල් කීපයක් තමයි තාම පරීක්ෂා කරලා ඉවර. අනිත් සාම්පල් වල දැන් අපි පරීක්ෂා දැන්ට අපි නිලධාරීන් කරගෙන යනවා. සඳ දින කීපයක් යයි. අපි ඒක සම්පූර්ණ වාර්තාව අපි ලබා දෙනවා.
What triggered these discoveries? The breakthrough came during interrogations of Kehilbadra Padme, an organised crime leader arrested in Indonesia, who revealed details of a methamphetamine production facility allegedly operating in Nuwara. Police teams have already been dispatched to inspect the suspected site. Meanwhile, another key figure, Bako Saman, also in custody, provided information about a large stockpile of chemicals used in meth production. This led to the recovery of 50,000 kilograms of chemicals buried on a property in Middenia, with another load found nearby in a cemetery. Yesterday, a similar stockpile was discovered from Netholpitiya Tangol from a property belonging to the Navy, located about 200 meters off the main Vadigala road. What links are emerging in the investigation? According to police, the stockpile found in Middenia, Netholpitiya and Kandana are linked to Kehilbadra Padme, Bako Saman and Panadurani Lanka. In connection with the Middenia discovery, Vijay Wikrama Manamperige Piyal Senadira, a former SLPP member of the Angulukula Palace Pradeshiya Sabha, has been arrested. The land where the chemicals were buried belongs to his brother Sampath Manamperi, a former SLPP local government candidate who is now on the run. Police revealed that Sampath Manamperi, once a police constable, had previously been arrested in connection with the assassination of MP Nadaraja Raviraj but was later released. How did these containers enter the country? Investigations indicate that the container suspected of carrying these chemicals was cleared from the Colombo port on the 27th January and transported to Midenia on the 29th January. Meanwhile, a locally made firearm was recovered today from the Midenia land where chemicals suspected to be used in the production of the drug ice were found. Police added that the 3 T-shirts with the Sri Lanka police emblem were also discovered. Meanwhile, a woman claiming to be the sister of Pial Manamperi, who is currently in custody, lodged a complaint with the Human Rights Commission this morning along with a lawyer. She stated that one of her brothers had been arrested without any explanation while attempts were being made to arrest her other brother as well.
My younger brother was taken into custody on the 4th without any reason given, and he is still being held. We don't know on what grounds he is being kept. The police claim investigations are ongoing, but until then they are just keeping him locked up, beating him and treating him badly. We are asking what the law is here. Now they are trying to take everyone in our family. Today one person, tomorrow another. We are living in fear and have no way to survive. We are innocent people and not connected to any of this. My younger brother has a 3-month-old baby at home. He was taken away and can't even see his child. Even my sister-in-law was taken and kept in detention. When she was released and came home, she was confined to the house, not allowed to go out, and no one was allowed to visit. I live in Colombo, but I cannot live peacefully there. This morning, police together with the STF surrounded our house, searched the entire premises without any documents and seized both my personal phones and my husband's phone. They even tried to take my husband away in a vehicle for questioning, along with his elder brother. They later released him saying there was no problem, but still returned to the house and demanded my 3 phones be brought to the unit in Paliagoda. The children are terrified, crying that their father will be taken away by the police. Because of this, they cannot even attend school. Most of the school work is on the phone. My elderly parents are also suffering. They hardly eat or drink. My brother, who was beaten, had already undergone chest surgery, but despite his condition, he was assaulted again. He even told our mother that he was being beaten. Still, the only thing the authorities tell us is to hand my other brother over. My brothers support the SLPP and were councillors. This is a political revenge. If this was about the law, such thing would not happen. That is why I came to the Human Rights Commission today to ask for justice and relief for my brothers and to ensure the police act according to the law. We only ask for fair and just treatment.
අපිට සහනයක් ලබා දෙන්න මේකෙන් සාධාරණ සහනයක්. පැමිණිල්ල මගේ සහෝදරය අත්අඩංගුවට අරගෙන තියෙනවා ඇම්බිලිපිටියේදී. ගැන සම්බන්ධ හේතුවක් කියන්නේ නැහැ. මොකක්ද හේතුවක් දැන් ඇම්බිලිපිටිය පොලිසියෙන් ගෙනහිල්ලා දැන් මිද්දෙනී පොලිසිය තමයි තියලා තියෙන්නේ. මොකක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් අත්අඩංගුවට ගත්තයි කියලා. ඒක කිව්වේ නැහැ. කිසි කෙනෙක් කිව්වේ නැහැ. ගෙදරට ආවා ඇවිල්ලා මල්ලිව අත්අඩංගුවට ගත්තා. අයිය බාර දෙන්න කියනවා. දන්නේ නැහැ හේතුවක් කියන්න ඕන. පියල් සේනාධීර කිසිම හේතුවක් නැතුව වෙනත් පුද්ගලයෙක් නිසා මේ ගහන්නේ. දේශපාලන පරිගැනීමක් මගේ මල්ලි අයියා පොහොට්ටු මන්ත්‍රීවරු. ඒක නිසා ඒගොල්ලන්ගෙන් මේ පරිගැනීමක් කරන්නේ. කවුද වෙනත් පුද්ගලයෙක්? මගේ සහෝදරයෙක් අත්අඩංගු බාර කරන්න කියලා තමයි මේ ඔක්කොම අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්නෙ. මගේ අයියා සම්පත් මනම්පේරි. නෑ. මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් හත් කියලා ඔබතුමීලා හිතන්නේ දන්නේ නෑ. දේශපාලන පරිගණකේ මොකක් සම්බන්ධද? දන්නේ නෑ. කිසිම දෙයක් දන්නේ නෑ. පුවත්පත් වල එහෙම පළ වුණා වෙනත් ආරංචි. පුවත්පත් වල පළ වුණා මගේ ඉඩමක මොනවද ගල් වගේක් වලලා කියලා. ඉතින් ඒක ඒ ගල් අපේ ගෙදර
Meanwhile, National People's Power MP Sunil Ratnasiri states that there is no political vengeance behind these incidents.
The people asked us not to allow thieves to go unpunished. That was a clear public mandate. Now, containers full of chemical substances used to produce synthetic drugs like ice have been brought into Sri Lanka. These incidents are not isolated or accidental. Also keep in mind, the local council member who was recently arrested couldn't have brought such large quantities of containers into the country in isolation. That means that there are people above him such as MPs, cabinet ministers, even former presidents who are likely to be involved in this matter. Remember, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. In the past, figures like Makandure Madush and other underworld drug traffickers were brought to Sri Lanka. What happened then? They were held under detention for days. Some were even taken to show hidden weapons and were later killed. Yet nothing was uncovered, no real progress was made. And what's happening now? A group including Kehilbadra Padme has been brought in. Within just 24 hours of their arrival, their drug trafficking network and underworld connections have started surfacing. Previously, politicians were often found to be working hand in hand with these drug traffickers and underworld figures. But today, that situation has changed. That political protection no longer exists.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna bear the following stance.
චෝදනාවට ලක් වෙන එක පුද්ගලයෙක් අපේ පක්ෂෙන් පහුගිය ප්‍රාදේශීය සභා මැතිවරණයට තරඟ කරලා තියෙනවා.
One of the accused had contested the last Pradesh Sabha election from our party. As soon as this was revealed, our party's Honorable Secretary issued an official statement suspending his membership and made it public. The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna has never provided security for this person, nor has it even considered doing so, and it never will. We want to stress very clearly that the government's container scam has now reached its peak after beginning with the issues surrounding that container. Who is the importer of this chemical stock? What chemical name did the importer submit to customs? Why was the purpose of this import not questioned? The government must answer these questions.
ආනයනකරු විසින් රේගුවට ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තිබුණු chemical name එක මොකක්ද? මේ ආනයනයේ purpose එක ප්‍රශ්න කළේ නැත්තේ ඇයි? මේවාට ආණ්ඩුව පිළිතුරු දිය යුතුමයි.
දැන් වටගල නියෝජ්‍ය ඇමතිවරයා මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් නාමල් රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාගේ නම ආඳන්න උත්සාහ.
Now, Deputy Minister Watagala is trying to link Namal Rajapaksa to this matter. I want to tell the people of this country that this could be part of a very dangerous conspiracy. We have strong reasons to suspect that the government itself is attempting to frame Namal Rajapaksa, who is now the biggest threat to them, in a drug-related offence, to harm him and make it appear as an underworld issue.
ඔහුගේ ජීවිතයට යම්කිසි හානියක් කළා. ඒක පාතාලය අතරේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් හැටියට අර්ථ දක්වන්න දරන උත්සාහයක්ද කියන සාධාරණ සැකයක් අපිට තියෙනවා.
A protest against drug trafficking was held opposite the central bus stand in Middeniya today.
රට ඉවර කරපු යවුන් තමයි මේ කුඩු ගහලා තියන්නේ. මහත්තයෝ කරුණා කරලා කියන්න අපි ආණ්ඩුවටයි කියන්නේ මුණ්ඩ තවත් මේ පාරට එන්න දෙන්න එපා. මේ අපේ රට ඉවර කරාමුන්. අපේ පුංචාවුන් ඉවර කරන්න හදන්නේ මුන්. අපි ආණ්ඩුවට බල කරලා කියන්නේ අත්තලාමේ මේ වැඩේ නවත්තන්න කියන්න.
රාජපක්ෂ කාඩර්වරු තව දුරටත් මේ රටේ බලේ හිටියනම් මේ විෂ මද්ද්‍රව්‍ය නිසා වෙන්න තිබුණු විනාශය කොච්චරක්ද කියලා අපිට හිතා ගන්නවත් බෑ. දැන් සියල්ල අනාවරණය වෙමින් තිබෙනවා. රාජපක්ෂලාගේ ප්‍රාදේශීය සභා මන්ත්‍රීවරු විදියට උන් එක්ක එකට ඉඳපු උන්ගේ ගෝල බාලයෝන්ගේ මේ තොරතුරු වලින් අනාවරණය වෙමින් තියෙනවා. කවුද මේ රටට මේ විෂ මද්ද්‍රව්‍ය ගෙනල්ලා තියන්නේ? කාගේ ඉඩම් වලද තියන්නේ? කවුද මේවට සම්බන්ධ කියලා. ජනාධිපතිතුමනි, පොලිස්පතිතුමනි තරා තිරමක් නොබලා නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න.
දේශබන්දුලා යුක්තිය මෙහෙයුම් දමාගෙන පුංචේවුන්ගේ අයිස් තියනවා කියලා බෑග් චෙක් කරද්දි රාජපක්ෂලාගේ හෙන්ටයියෝ හැම ගෙදරක් ගානව වත්තක් ගානව කුඩුවට අදාර්ල දේවල් වල දමාගෙන මේ රට විනාශ කරන ගමනක යෙදුනා. දරුවන්ට කන්න බොන්න දෙන්න විදියක් නෑ. අම්බ කරන්නේ කුඩු වලට බැයි වෙලා. අනේ රතුකර ජනාධිපතිතුමනි ඔබට අල්ල කකුල් දෙක අල්ල වදිනවා. මේ ගත්ත අඩිය කොහොමද පස්සට ගන්න එපා. මේ ඉන්නත් අමුතුවරු මේවට සම්බන්ධ නම් ඒව එකයිලා මේ නීතිය කරන්න.
Following the protest, a group of protesters moved to the vicinity of a house in Talava, Middeniya, where a large stock of chemicals suspected to be used in ice production was discovered.
මහත්තයෝ මේ රට විනාශ කරන්න මේ කුඩු ගෙනල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. පොලිස්පතිතුමාටත් ජනාධිපතිතුමාටත් අපි කියන්නේ වහාම මේ අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න. ගෑවිච්ච හැම කෙනාම අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න. අපේ දරුවෝ විනාශ කරන්න මේ ගෙනල්ලා තියෙන්නේ.
Following the protest, a group of protesters moved to the vicinity of a house in Talava, Middeniya, where a large stock of chemicals suspected to be used in ice production was discovered.
මහත්තයෝ මේ රට විනාශ කරන්න මේ කුඩු ගෙනල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. පොලිස්පතිතුමාටත් ජනාධිපතිතුමාටත් අපි කියන්නේ වහාම මේ අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න. ගෑවිච්ච හැම කෙනාම අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න. අපේ දරුවෝ විනාශ කරන්න මේ ගෙනල්ලා තියෙන්නේ.
The Attorney General informed the Colombo High Court that a detention order has been issued for Nadun Chintaka Vikramaratne, also known as Harakata, to remain in custody under the Prevention of Terrorism Act until the conclusion of the ongoing legal proceedings related to the alleged attempt to escape from the Criminal Investigation Department.
The announcement was made by Senior State Counsel Sajid Bandara, who appeared on behalf of the Attorney General when the case was called before Colombo High Court Judge Sujeeva Nissanka. During a previous hearing, the State Counsel informed the court that once the detention order issued against the defendant by the Secretary of Defence expires, the suspect would be remanded. However, the State Counsel informed the court today that considering the suspect's security, the Secretary of Defence has decided that the suspect remains under detention. Appearing on behalf of the defendant, Attorney-at-Law Jalia Samrasinghe expressed strong opposition to this. The defendant will remain under detention at the Terrorist Investigation Division at the old Tengor prison. Nadun Chintaka Vikramaratne, also known as Harakata, appeared before the court via Zoom. The next hearing of the case was postponed until the 24th of October.
The Supreme Court has scheduled a hearing for the 12th of February 2026 to consider the petitions challenging the appointment of Deshabandhu Tennakone as Inspector General of Police. The petitions argue that the decision made by then President Ranil Wickremesinghe to appoint Deshabandhu Tennakone as Inspector General of Police was unconstitutional. The petitions were called before a three-judge bench of Chief Justice Preeti Padman Surasena and Justices Mahinda Samayawardena and Arjun Obesekara today.
Suren Fernando, an attorney representing one of the petitioners, requested that the case be taken up before a five-judge bench, stating that the petitions are of great public importance. Chief Justice Preeti Padman Surasena stated that the request would be considered and ordered that the petitions be heard on the 12th of February 2026. A total of 9 petitions have been filed, including those of Cardinal Malcolm Ranjith, the Young Journalists Association and other parties. Former President Wickremesinghe, the Speaker, members of the Constitutional Council and the Attorney General have been named as respondents.
An officer from a private security firm was remanded until the 10th of this month by Colombo Chief Magistrate Asanga S. Bodiragama today. Now, the officer is accused of video recording the vehicle transporting Chief Justice Preeti Padman Surasena as well as the vehicle in his security detail. The magistrate also ordered that the phone allegedly used to record the video be sent to the government analyst for a report.
Cinnamon Gardens Police stated that the Chief Justice was returning to his residence on Gregory's Road when his security detail noticed a private security officer video recording the Chief Justice's vehicle and the security vehicles with a mobile phone. The Chief Justice's security officers then took the suspect into custody and handed him over to the Cinnamon Gardens Police. Police requested a court order to transfer the phone to the Criminal Investigation Department to determine whether the suspect had sent the footage to another party and, if so, for what reason. Police also asked that the suspect be remanded while further investigations are conducted. The suspect's lawyer admitted that his client had video recorded the vehicles but stated that he had not done so for any criminal purpose. He requested that his client be released on bail under any conditions. After considering the facts, the Chief Magistrate ordered the suspect to be remanded until the 10th of this month.
Newsfirst with the people.
UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk has urged the government to transform its pledges into a coherent, time-bound plan for justice, reconciliation and reform. At the same time, Sri Lanka firmly rejected the imposition of external accountability mechanisms, asserting that such measures would undermine national reconciliation efforts. Addressing the United Nations Human Rights Council, Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath said the government remains committed to advancing justice and human rights through credible domestic processes.
I welcome the government's pledge to take action on major, long-standing issues, including strengthening the rule of law and ending ethnic discrimination and the politics of division. Impunity can be a second form of violence that perpetuates cycles of harm. The demands of victims and survivors must be addressed. Their voices must guide the government's policies on accountability, truth, justice and reparation. This calls for a formal acknowledgement of violations and abuses, including during the civil war. Victims and survivors need the state and its security forces to accept responsibility and recognize the lasting impact of violations and crimes committed by them, alongside those committed by non-state armed groups such as the LTTE. There must be a shared sense of the facts and a shared conviction that justice is being served. I welcome the President's statements in this regard and the increased space for memorialization by victims. Despite the government's commitment to repeal the Prevention of Terrorism Act, arbitrary arrests and detentions under the law continue. I urge the government to impose an immediate moratorium on the use of this act. My report also calls for the amendment or repeal of other laws or proposed laws that restrict fundamental rights, civil and political rights. These include the Online Safety Act, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights Act, the draft NGO Bill, and the draft Personal Data Protection Act.
The UN Rights Chief also noted the OHCHR stands ready to support Sri Lanka.
Mr. President, international engagement through my office, through this Council and the human rights mechanisms can play an important part in the change Sri Lanka so desperately needs. My office stands ready to assist Sri Lanka on this journey. One example of our work, mandated by the Council, is the Sri Lanka Accountability Project, through which we have built a secure repository of over 105,000 items of evidence, a critical resource for legal processes, justice and truth-seeking. I call on all member states to support this work. I also call on them to cooperate in investigating and prosecuting alleged perpetrators of international crimes committed in Sri Lanka under principles of universal jurisdiction and to explore further sanctions against people credibly accused of gross violations of human rights. I encourage Sri Lanka to seek international assistance with the exhumation of mass graves and other investigations. Together, the international community can support Sri Lankans to escape from the twin threats posed by persistent impunity and deep inequality.
Our anti-corruption drive has been strengthened with new legislation enabling independent investigations and prosecutions leading to landmark convictions. The government is in the process of repealing the PTA and introducing new counter-terrorism legislation. Amendments are being formulated through consultations to the Online Safety Act. The government continues to strengthen the domestic reconciliation mechanisms by guaranteeing their independence and the necessary financial and human resources allocations. Respecting the right for truth and justice, the government has allocated required resources for excavations at the Chemmani grave site, which are being carried out under judicial supervision. Mr. President, developments within less than a year clearly demonstrate our genuine commitment and determination to protect and promote the rights and well-being of all Sri Lankans through our domestic processes. Therefore, the government is opposed to any external mechanism imposed on us, such as the Sri Lanka Accountability Project, which serves to create divisions and complicate the national reconciliation process underway in Sri Lanka. We are committed to working towards a country that respects and celebrates the diversity of its people in line with our domestic legal framework. The government will continue to work in close cooperation with the international community through capacity building and technical assistance in mutually agreed areas to further strengthen these efforts. We urge this Council to take note of the progress made within a short period.
Member states of the UNHRC added their comments during the interactive dialogue on Sri Lanka.
We look forward to the government continuing to take the necessary steps towards legislative reforms, steps to ensure the effectiveness of dialogue to reach national reconciliation geared towards achieving stability and ensuring a common vision for the promotion and protection of human rights. To conclude, we encourage the Council to support the efforts of the government through technical cooperation, capacity building and constructive dialogue.
This statement is on behalf of the Sri Lanka Core Group comprising Canada, Malawi, Montenegro, North Macedonia and the United Kingdom. We welcome the government's decision to abolish the Prevention of Terrorism Act. We urge the government to turn its commitments into meaningful actions on human rights, accountability, reconciliation, good governance and constitutional reform. It is crucial that investigations at mass grave sites are carried out in line with international standards and that journalists, human rights defenders and civil society organisations can operate freely and safely. We remain willing to work constructively with Sri Lanka.
The European Union recalls the increasing need for transitional justice. We acknowledge the government's efforts, including the initiative to establish an independent public prosecution office. However, we remain concerned over the lack of significant progress on accountability and justice for the victims, especially with respect to the many cases of dead and still missing persons. The European Union monitors the human rights situation and remains concerned about the continued use of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, while recognizing ongoing steps forward repealing this legislation. The European Union stands ready to support Sri Lanka in implementing transformative reforms and strengthening the protection of human rights, welcoming its continued cooperation with the United Nations human rights system.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Japan takes note of the High Commission report and appreciates Sri Lanka's engagement in its preparation. Japan welcomes the strong political commitment of the new government of Sri Lanka to taking concrete actions towards national reconciliation, including the recent efforts to develop a national action plan and strengthen the capacities of domestic institutions that could contribute to confidence building among different ethnic communities. We also acknowledge various government initiatives for promoting socio-economic development of the conflict-affected areas in the north and east, and social protection measures for the vulnerable communities affected by the economic crisis. Japan encourages the government of Sri Lanka, which is primarily responsible for the promotion and protection of human rights in the country, to continue those efforts and take effective measures to achieve a meaningful reconciliation and a better human rights situation through dialogue and cooperation with the relevant domestic and international stakeholders. In this regard, Japan welcomes Sri Lanka's cooperative and constructive approach in working with the international community to address human rights challenges, including its acceptance of the High Commissioner's visit to the country in June this year. Japan reaffirms its willingness and determination to continue to assist Sri Lanka's efforts in this respect. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Mr. Vice President, we have taken note of the High Commissioner's report. As a close friend of Sri Lanka and an immediate neighbour with deep-rooted ties to it, India has remained steadfast in its support of the relief, rehabilitation, resettlement and reconstruction process in Sri Lanka since 2009. India and Sri Lanka share deep historical, cultural and civilizational ties. Today, these bonds have evolved into a strong multidimensional partnership. Sri Lanka holds a special place in India's Neighbourhood First policy and Vision Mahasagar. India extended vital financial and technical support to ensure Sri Lanka's economic recovery and long-term stability after the unprecedented economic crisis in 2022. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Sri Lanka in April 2025 and Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Desanayaka's state visit to India in December 2024 are significant milestones in our bilateral relations. India's approach has always been to support the aspirations of the Tamil community for equality, justice, dignity and peace within the overall unity, territorial integrity and sovereignty of Sri Lanka. In this regard, India has consistently called for the full and effective implementation of the Sri Lankan Constitution, early conduct of provincial council elections and meaningful devolution of powers. India believes that meaningful devolution and genuine reconciliation through an inclusive approach would contribute to nation building and a durable peace. Progress in these areas will not only benefit all communities in Sri Lanka, but also reinforce the strong foundation of friendship and trust between our two countries. I thank you.
Vice President, China takes note of the OHCHR's report on human rights in Sri Lanka. China commends Sri Lanka's efforts of promoting and protecting human rights, including launching Clean Sri Lanka project, combating corruption, establishing an independent public prosecutor's office, and ensuring accountability for the 2019 Easter Sunday attack and other emblematic cases. As always, China will firmly support Sri Lanka maintaining its political stability, focusing on economic construction and achieving its autonomous and sustainable development so as to create enabling conditions for socio-economic development and improvement of its people's living standard. China always advocates dialogue and cooperation as the means to settle disputes in human rights field, advocates impartial and objective work in the Council, and opposes politicization and instrumentalization of human rights issues. Any external effort should play a constructive role in helping the country concerned addressing human rights issues rather than intervening into external affairs. China urges relevant countries to respect the Sri Lankan people's own choice of the human rights development path, abandon the intervention in the internal affair and the political pressure, and come back to the right track of dialogue and cooperation. Thank you, Vice President.
President, we see no reason to raise the alarm about the human rights situation in Sri Lanka, whose authorities have shown themselves to be ready to engage in mutually respectful cooperation with human rights mechanisms. A prime example is the recent visit of the High Commissioner on human rights to the country. We note the efforts to bring national legislation into line with international human rights obligations, and there are measures underway to enhance the governance, and there has been progress on national reconciliation. In this context, we welcome the decision taken in August this year by the government to start developing a new national policy and action plan in this sphere. In Sri Lanka, there is a relevant bureau as well as a presidential commission on investigating human rights violations. Against this backdrop, we are concerned by ongoing attempts to put political pressure on this sovereign state under far-fetched human rights pretexts. It is in this context that we consider the Human Rights Council resolutions that do not enjoy the support of the national countries and which give the OHCHR powers to collect and analyse information on the alleged human rights violations for some future legal proceedings. Such an approach undermines the universal principle of non-interference in the domestic affairs of a sovereign state, and we are convinced that investigations and any prosecuting should be the prerogative of Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Newsfirst, main sponsor.
A trusted place for your fixed deposits. Valuable FD, the symbol of stability. A trusted place for your fixed deposits. Valuable FD, 10.25% for 15 months, 11% for 24 months. Valuable FD, the symbol of stability.
Welcome back to the news. The Sri Lanka Air Force has pulled off a remarkable long-range medical evacuation off the coast of Sri Lanka.
The Sri Lanka Air Force successfully executed a long-range medical evacuation from a merchant vessel located approximately 102 kilometers off the southern coast of Sri Lanka. The operation was carried out by Bell 412 helicopter from the No. 4 Squadron Air Base, Ratmalana. Responding to an urgent distress call, the SLAF deployed the aircraft to airlift an injured crew member in need of immediate medical attention. Navigating challenging maritime conditions and coordinating with naval and medical authorities, the SLAF team demonstrated exceptional skill and professionalism throughout the mission.
The 2025 Asia Cup T20 tournament is set to commence tomorrow at the Sheikh Zayed International Cricket Stadium in Abu Dhabi. Now, the official local broadcasting rights for this highly anticipated tournament are held by TV1 of the Sirasa Media Network, ensuring that fans in Sri Lanka can catch all the action live.
The 2025 Asia Cup T20 tournament is set to kick off in the United Arab Emirates, with 8 teams vying for the coveted trophy. This marks the 3rd edition of the tournament in the T20 format. Group A, which includes Sri Lanka, is packed with competition. Joining them are Afghanistan, Hong Kong and Bangladesh. Sri Lanka's campaign begins on the 13th in Abu Dhabi against familiar rivals Bangladesh. They will then face Hong Kong on the 15th, followed by a final group stage match against Afghanistan on the 18th. The previous 2 T20 Asia Cups were won by India and Sri Lanka respectively, and both teams are looking to secure the 2nd title. For local fans, all the action will be broadcast live on TV1 of the Sirasa Media Network. We are ready to bring you all these matches from the Stein Studios in Ratmalana, equipped with modern technological systems and international match analysis expertise.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1.
Thank you for watching. Good night.